Last time on LeastHaunted.
All right, so here we are.
Okay.
Delivering as promised the episode about Harry Price.
A lot of ins, a lot of outs, a lot of what have yous.
I don't know, maybe Benedict Cumberbatch?
I actually personally went to preschool on a sheep ranch.
Oh, let's jump on this backwards carousel of time.
A great big bushy beard.
Harry Price in the corner. Oh, I like apparatus.
This would be the opening salvo in what would prove to be the Psychic Cold War.
Road maps!
I'm begging for judgment. When, Lord, when? Make it end. How to turn your goat lover into a human so you can avoid the negative stigma of banging a goat.
I guess I love Chevy Chase. I love everybody. We shouldn't remember his name. Fuck him.
In 1934, Price dissolves the National Laboratory of Psychical Research. However, the war is not over.
On screen. I am Locutus of Borg. Resistance is futile. Mr. Worf. Fire.
And now, the conclusion.
Hello, and welcome to the LeastHaunted podcast, where science, skepticism, anthropology, and humor meet to discuss all things haunting, spectral, spooky, paranormal, and sometimes just the plain stupid. I'm your host, Cody Franks, and joining me, as almost always, is...
Garth! Here I am, once more, to fill in the role of co-pilot on this wild adventure. That was a weird way of phrasing it. Here I am to fill in the role of co-pilot for our thrilling conclusion. This is a two-parter, Cody. As you'll recall, our topic is something about psychic wars, I believe. It's been a while. Something about psychic wars.
Yes, the Psychic Wars. Not to be confused with the Psychic Wars of Blue Oyster Cult.
You see me now, a veteran of 1,000 psychic wars.
Wait, was that a thing?
I can't say if we're ever gonna be free.
First, let's do a little check-in. How you been, Garth? How you doing?
I've got two little kittens.
Yeah?
Yeah, there's two little kitty cats. Cody, who got me in touch with his sister, and she was raising some little kittens and needed to give them a home, so Kelly and I picked them up a few days ago. They are adorable.
Oh yeah, they're very cute.
Oh man, yeah, anyway, we just took them to the vet this morning, and they're just bouncing around. They're actually less work than I was expecting. They're sleeping more or less when we are, and yeah, it's wonderful. I've been wanting a cat for a while, so we're having a great time.
You wanted a cat, and now you have two.
Yeah, and now we got two.
Nice.
But yeah, life is good. I've got kitties.
Good.
I'm happy.
Sweet.
How about you, Cody? How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Things in our little household spaceship are staying pretty calm. Allison is doing her daily virtual teaching for the summer school session at the school she works at.
Nice.
And our garden is coming along nice. We've got some young peppers that are shaping up, and my Joe Pera inspired bean/pea arch.
Yeah, the pea arch, yes.
Yeah, it's doing all right. And some tomatoes.
Oh, right on. Excellent.
Yeah, the victory garden.
the victory garden, the COVID victory garden of the 21st century. Yeah, your Joe Pera bean arch. I'm very much looking forward to seeing that come to fruition. How far up the arch are the beans at this point, Cody?
Well, I planted beans and peas. The beans are kind of disappointing. They're not really climbing. The peas, however, are about halfway up the arch and are producing.
Excellent. That was something that I always hated as a kid, canned peas. I have no idea why my mom got them canned, but I always thought I hated peas. Really, I just hated canned peas.
Yep, same here. Canned peas and frozen peas. But no, if they're still in their shell, they're great. Snap peas?
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. Anyway, the topic of peas dovetails really nicely into the psychic wars. in some way. I couldn't say how, but it does. So anyway, where did we last leave off with the psychic wars, Cody?
Well, see, the thing about psychic wars and peas is that peas have multiple peas in the pod.
Oh, yeah.
And the psychic wars are plural. You know, there's more than one battle to each psychic war.
That's true. There's more than one battlefield. I mean, this is an international thing, each nation being its own pea in the pod of psychic warfare.
Yes.
And actually, each individual in the pod is its own pea in its own pod. So you have multiple levels of peas within pods, where the metaphor switches from a pea to a pod with each iteration, like Inception. It's an inception of peas within pods within peas within pods.
And then if people put their ear pods into their ears, they can hear our pod where we tell them about the pods that contain the peas.
And you have growing peas in the podcast.
Hi, welcome to the Pea Podcast. We just talked about nothing but growing peas.
Everything in life can be a metaphor stripped down to the pea in the pod dichotomy.
Yeah.
Is that the right word for it? Yeah, anyway, so we're good off to a roaring start here.
Excellent. Well, let's do a little check-in. So last time on LeastHaunted, we were talking about the paranormal researcher and investigator Harry Price.
Oh yes, Harry Price.
In his fight for credibility and legitimacy against his rivals at the Society for Psychical Research. When we left Harry Price, he had just dissolved his organization, the National Laboratory for Psychical Research, but for this next chapter, we actually have to rewind just a bit, because one of these battles in the psychical war between the two rival paranormal research organizations had actually started years before and even carried on long after the war was seemingly over, long past Harry Price's death, and in fact, it's still being fought to this day.
Wow.
Yes. True to the analogy of these psychic wars in this epic, this one is part prequel. We're going to start like in media res prequel for a sequel.
Is this like the beginning of Return of the King when you see Smeagol? And that was a prequel to The Lord of the Rings because it was what happened before the first one, even though it was the third movie?
Yeah.
Is it like a... Okay, got it.
We're kind of doing that thing.
I understand what's happening.
Okay.
Continue.
To start, on May 25th, 1937, the following personal ad appeared in the London Times, and it ran as follows. Haunted house. Responsible persons of leisure and intelligence, intrepid, critical, and unbiased, are invited to join rota of observers in a year's night and day investigation of alleged haunted house in home counties. Printed instructions supplied. Scientific training or ability to operate simple instruments an advantage. House situated in lonely hamlet, so own car is essential.
Years, night and day? Does that mean they want people to stay there for an entire year?
I think it's a year-long investigation transpiring at night and day.
Oh, got it.
Or one could read that as 1 year, 1 night, and 1 day.
365 days isn't quite enough. We're going to go 366. That's very important.
I've just been looking through a bunch of Craigslist ads trying to help a friend find a house of their own. And that just kind of reads like it's a Craigslist ad, you know, for a haunted house.
House found in lonely hamlet of the Santa Cruz Mountains.
Haunted house seeks investigators to fulfill it.
Yeah, the personal ads for a haunted house.
So keep in mind that this ad is just run. Now, we're going to take another flashback within the flashback. I know this is very convoluted.
Oh, yeah, this is
Very
great.
convoluted.
Okay. I'm with you.
Okay.
I'm with you. We're pea-potting the metaphor down through inceptions of layers of prequels of flashbacks. Okay, got it.
And in fact, this one might actually require a ride on the backwards carousel of time.
Oh, my favorite. We did that last time, didn't we? We must have. This is a whole history lesson. Anyway, if we didn't do it before.
We wrote it last time, but we'll write it again.
I couldn't remember because it happened in the past's future, and I forgot that already. Okay.
Yeah, time travel makes it very confusing.
That's always my excuse if I don't remember anything. Let's get on the backwards carousel of time. All right, so we're back in the past now.
Yes, we are in the year 1862. It is still 19 years before Harry Price will be born,
Oh, wow.
and it's 20 years before the Society for Psychical Research would be formed.
Oh, man, so if we invest now, we can make it big in 20 years in psychical stocks.
If we could get Joanna Southcott's box now, we could really mess up the future. In a small hamlet called Borley in Sussex, in the east of England, a new home was built to house the rector of Borley Parish and his family. Garth, do you know what a rector is?
Is a rector a person in the church?
It is a church position.
Yeah, someone who oversees a church or something.
Pretty much.
Like a steward of a church, something like that?
They're usually reverends.
Oh, okay.
In this particular case, we're talking about Anglicans and the Church of England. So it's kind of like they have their parish, which is the local community. Usually a parish would actually encompass more than one village if it's a small area. And so your rector is the parish priest or reverend.
Oh, okay.
Who oversees the area. And a rectory is the house that is supplied to the rector for them to live in.
Oh, this is the little cabin next to the church that the reverend lives in, or the rector. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes called a parsonage. This is a rectory. Although you said little cabin, this was not a little cabin.
Was this as an extravagant bit of conspicuous consumption on the part of?
Not really. It's just that he had a really big family. He had 14 children.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
So the rectory, it ended up having 23 rooms, and here's a description of it. It was substantially built of brick and stone. All the doors were thick and heavy. The floors were a heavy wood in some parts and stone in other rooms. Some of the windows, such as the dairy, the kitchen, scullery, and passages, were iron barred, giving that part of the house a rather prison-like appearance.
Yikes.
When it was first built, it contained 18 rooms, but as Mr. Bull's family increased, he added a new wing to accommodate them. There were 14 children altogether, of whom 12 survived. The house, when completed, enclosed a central courtyard which had a narrow outlet at one corner. No gas or electricity was or ever had been available. Lighting was supplied by means of oil lamps and candles, and the only water supply was from a deep well in the courtyard.
Wow. Living off the land, old timey. Damn.
Now they mentioned they have a scullery, and that implies that they actually have servants who live in the house. A scullery, you would have a scullion or a scullery maiden. She's the person housekeeper type person.
Oh, okay. I always thought a scullery was like a kitchen, but it's for the servants.
Well, yeah. So scullery is to get into the way they used to break down these jobs.
This is really important for us to understand psychic warfare. We've got to define our terms here. What is a scullery, Cody?
Well, to understand the psychic wars, you first have to understand the Sculligan Wars. No, so scullery, yeah, you were right that it does deal with the kitchen. Scullery, if I remember correctly, is all the tasks that are around the kitchen. So it's the live-in cook.
Okay.
But she's also kind of like a maid, housekeeper type person that they have living there. So he's got 14 children, his wife, and one servant in the scullery, and they have other servants too because they mentioned they have a dairy to supply milk for the family, and they have grounds that need to be tended. All this is paid for by the church.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot to mention that the rector, his name was Reverend Henry Dawson Ellis Bull, or we'll just refer to him as Henry Bull or Mr. Bull.
All right.
So he moves into this rectory with his large family. In fact, actually, he added a wing to the building to house the rest of his kids. And he would actually live at Borley and be the reverend there, or the rector there, until his death in 1892, 30 years later. He died in what was called the Blue Room. It's a room on the ground floor that is blue, so it's the Blue Room. His wife also passed away, and then his son, Harry, who would succeed him as the rector of the parish, would also die in that room in 1927. So,
wow.
A haunted room, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
While they were living there, and shortly after moving in, they started to notice a series of strange and odd events. We have noises, strange knocks, you hear footsteps, the basic stuff, your classic haunted house stuff.
Okay, so basic haunted house stuff. So, creaking doors. Anything else? That's it.
How does a ghost nun and two headless horsemen driving a phantom carriage do ya?
Oh, that's pretty good. I thought you were setting up a joke. I was like, I don't know what. Oh yeah, that sounds good. Wow. So somebody saw this?
Yeah, so members of the family, they start to say that they have seen a spectral nun wandering around the property. At the time, they were told that the site where Borley Rectory was built was a monastery in the 1300s for Benedictine monks.
Oh, interesting.
But why a nun would be at the site of a monastery?
Yeah, I don't think nuns and monks really were in the same place. That's like Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. You can't be having that.
Well, they can be in the same place if they're breaking some rules.
Yeah, that's some sexy ghost things going on.
That's part of the story, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there's this legend.
Ooh, oh, this is getting good. All right, two star-crossed lovers. I was just thinking of a romantic story between monks and nuns.
So there's a legend that when it was a monastery, allegedly 8 miles away, there was a nunnery or a convent, and one of the monks started a love affair with one of the young nuns who was in training, and then they tried to elope, and they were captured. And after they were captured, as punishment, they hanged him, and then they walled her up alive inside the walls of the monastery.
Oh, man. Wow. That's dark. I didn't think it was going to end like that, but I guess they are ghosts, so I guess it had to kind of end like that. Jeez.
At least that's the legend. We'll get into the truth or the veracity of that legend later.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But for the time being, it's enough to say that they are seeing this spectral nun. In fact, part of the property becomes known as the Nun's Walk, because that's where they see the nun walking around. Also, Henry starts saying that he has seen what he calls, quote, the little man. He would tell the kids, I've seen the little man again. And he said it was like a shriveled up little old man he would see in the yard. But when he would approach, they would disappear. And I guess his wife supposedly saw this little man as well. And then he eventually had the window in the kitchen bricked up because he said he had an apparition that was peering through while they were eating meals, and he wanted to stop it from watching them eat.
Oh, jeez. So lots of ghosts around here. We have some star-crossed lovers, and a wrinkly little Rumpelstiltskin guy, and then some other guy who likes to... a food voyeur.
Also reports of seeing numerous figures without faces who would peer in through windows or duck around corners. Your typical shadow people is what they'd probably be called now. Like I said, after Henry dies, his son Harry then takes over and becomes the rector and would continue to report strange occurrences on the property. Although some of this, again, I've found conflicting reports. There's some where they say, yeah, Harry and his family had all kinds of experiences. But then there's also accounts that say his children later said that they never experienced anything while they lived in the house. Right? So it's hard to kind of parse out exactly what is going on here.
Yeah, it makes me wonder whether they retroactively, said a lot of things that they weren't saying at the time, or, living there, some people were seeing ghosts all the time and others just never were. I mean, yeah, that's odd.
Yeah. When Henry dies, his son Harry, who is Harry Foister Bull, he takes over, but they call it the living, which is kind of throwing me off in a lot of these accounts. Apparently, the correct term for while a rector is living in a rectory, that time is called the living. It's almost like the tenantship. I'm trying to think of a way to word this.
So can you use it in a sentence then? How would it be used?
Like this one thing says that Bull died in 1892, and his son, the Reverend Henry Foister Bull, or Harry Foister Bull, took over the living. And so I think it just means like he moved in and took over the duties.
Oh, interesting. So when they say the living, that means the stewardship of the place.
Stewardship. Stewardship is the word I was looking for, pretty much.
Yeah, I've never heard the word living used in that way. That's interesting.
They also refer to the period of which a rector is in a parish as the incumbency.
Oh, like a politician. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So when you're going through these old historical documents, they'll talk about the bull incumbency, and then when the next rector, it becomes the Smith incumbency, and so forth. So yeah, he was the rector there all the way until he died in the Blue Room in 1927. After that, it became vacant for a year, and then a new reverend named Guy Eric Smith and his wife, they move in to the rectory. Guy.
Okay, and now they're doing the living, guy.
They are now the living. Yeah, Guy Smith is the most.
That's so English.
It's the most nondescript name ever. That's the most Guy Smith.
Yeah, that actually has it one up on John Smith. Oh yeah, you know, Guy Smith.
He's just some guy. Anyway, after they move in, shortly after they start reporting a variety of incidents and weird happenings themselves.
Ooh,
This would be servants' bells, like the bell system for servants, would start ringing despite the fact that they had all been disconnected years before. They said that they would see strange lights in the windows. If they were outside looking at the house, they'd see strange lights. Now, remember, the house has no electricity.
Oh, okay, so that would be hard to account for.
It's lit entirely by oil lamp and candles.
And there are no fireflies in this part of the of Britain.
That I don't know. That is something I didn't even think of.
I thought fireflies were more in more warmer climes, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
We have fireflies here.
What?
Yeah, but they don't light up.
No way.
They're non-luminescent.
Oh, we have non-luminescent quote unquote fireflies.
Yeah.
Isn't every fly a non-luminescent firefly?
No, because they're actual species and genera. Come on, man.
I never thought about what a firefly was apart from the fact that it glows. So if it's a non-luminescent firefly.
I don't have time to get into the whole Linnaean classification of animals, man. We got to talk about haunted rectories and ghosts.
Yeah, and I need to make sure that I know what a scullery is. Okay. So anyway, not to go off on any deeper tangents, then let's talk about fireflies for a while. So, okay, so they're seeing weird lights outside. That's weird. Yeah.
And when they go to investigate, of course, there's nobody in the room. They start getting a strange poltergeist-type activity, things moving around of their supposed own volition or not being where they left them. Also, while the Smiths were in the living at Borley Rectory, Mrs. Smith was cleaning a cupboard and she found a paper bag. And inside of the paper bag was part of a skull, which they said they determined was a young woman's skull in a bag. And where it came from, or who knows, the Reverend buried it and gave it a Christian burial. But that didn't seem to slow down the activities that were happening there. They said wooden shutters on windows being slammed. They already mentioned things getting thrown around. All these strange noises. All, again, more haunted house stuff. And this leads them to reach out to the Daily Mirror and ask the paper, the Daily Mirror, to put them in touch with the Society for Psychical Research, our old friends, the SPR.
Aha. Interesting that you would contact the paper in order to get in touch with an institution. I guess that's the way people did it in the old times. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because we know that the SPR is a well-known... I mean, they knew about it, but it might have also been that they were trying to go through an extra route so as to not, tip off people. But why would you go to the press? Why would you use the press to do so?
Yeah, that's not the most subtle way to go about it. Maybe it's just the way people would do things back then, like write to the paper, hey, get me in touch with this person. I mean, it's not like you had the internet or even phones necessarily, so.
On June 10th, 1929, a newspaper reporter shows up and takes their story. And then shortly after he shows up and leaves, Harry Price shows up because the newspaper did not contact the Society for Psychical Research. Instead, they contacted Harry Price in the National Laboratory for Psychical Research.
Yes. Now, was this an oversight, or did he have people in the paper? Like, somebody's on Harry Price's side here, because that was a fortunate a misunderstanding.
One of the reporters who comes into into play later, although I'm not sure if this was him at the same time, had been present with Harry at other events that Harry had investigated. Because remember I said, like, they knew that anytime he got involved, it sold papers.
Right. Oh, okay. So I can see why they'd have an incentive to call him then. Okay.
Yeah. So Harry Price, he shows up in 1929 and meets with the Smiths and starts his investigation. And while he is there, all kinds of phenomena start to occur, including new phenomena that had never happened before, such as stones being thrown.
Oh, wow.
A vase and other objects being thrown or broken, and then spirit messages that were tapped out from the frame of a mirror. I guess they got close to the mirror and could hear a tapping noise coming from it, and messages, right? However, as soon as Harry left, all activity stops.
Ooh. The ghosts just love Harry. That's my conclusion.
Yeah, Smith's wife would later tell people that she had already suspected Price of being an expert conjurer, and she suspected that he was faking some of the things that were happening there.
Especially if it was new phenomena that hadn't happened before.
Yeah.
And suddenly it's happening while he's there, then going away.
So the Smiths lived there for a while, but then the Reverend starts to have some deteriorating health. Also, the story gets into the press, and so suddenly you have people who are coming to try and, like, explore the house while they live there. So you have people, like, looking in through their windows.
Oh, geez.
Tromping all over the garden, and so it just all combines, and they leave. They say, no, we're not going to stay here anymore, and they ask to be placed somewhere else and to give up the living there and leave it to the ghosts.
Now the ghosts will do the sermons.
But you know what we need to do is we need to take some time to dig for our own sweet money bones.
Money bones. You know what they call money? Bones. Yeah, that's right.
Dig for bones.
It's summertime once again, and you know, Garth, it seems like it comes around every year. You ever notice that?
Yeah.
And what's your favorite thing about summer, Garth?
Oh, getting together with friends, you know, talking into each other's mouths, spreading germs. Oh, wait.
What about barbecues and swimming?
Oh, yeah, I like going down to the old swimming hole. What about you, Cody? What's your favorite thing about summer?
Normally it's camping. You know, camping and campfires.
Yeah, I do like campfires. Absolutely. I don't know if we're going to be able to do much of that this year, the way things are going.
You're right. Sitting around a campfire, roasting marshmallows, and telling ghost stories is an experience that we here at LeastHaunted believe everybody, no matter where you come from, what you look like, how old you are, who you love, what you believe in, or who you are, everybody has the right to experience a campfire.
Hell yeah.
That's why we are announcing an exciting new project from the LeastHaunted podcast.
That's right.
We're proud to announce that on our YouTube channel, we will be starting
The LeastHaunted Campfire Club.
the LeastHaunted Campfire Club, a club? That sounds kind of exclusive, doesn't it?
Nope.
Who can join?
Anyone is welcome to join. In fact, all that's required for membership is for everybody to just show up around the LeastHaunted fire pit and enjoy the fun, entertaining, and sometimes spooky stories told by various friends and guests.
That sounds pretty easy.
It is.
Will there be ghost stories?
You know it.
How about horror stories?
The stuff of nightmares, Cody.
But not, like, too scary, right?
Well, there will be funny stories, too.
And are these stories true?
Some of them are. Some of the stories you may already know, and some are completely new stories never before heard anywhere.
I'm in. And I hope everybody else is, too. Every Friday without a new LeastHaunted episode, you can come over to our YouTube channel to watch a brand new LeastHaunted Campfire Club episode. All the fun of a real campfire, but without the smoke and mosquitoes.
We're saving a spot next to the fire for you.
Bring your own marshmallows. Hey everybody, it's Cody. I just wanted to jump in real quick before we get back to the rest of the episode to let you all know about a fun little contest we will be having. The San Bernardino Trading Company has recently rediscovered some cool old patches lying around their vast artifact-filled warehouse. Think the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah, it's sort of like that. Anyway, the patches commemorate the 1952 Meru Yeti expedition, which sought both to discover the legendary Mount Meru and to document evidence of the elusive Yeti. This cool limited edition iron-on patch features a Yeti footprint with 2 crossed ice axes and features colors from native Himalayan art. We'll post a few pics of it on our Instagram. Point is, we have a few of these patches that we want to give away to you, our Least Haunted listeners. But how do I win such an exquisite and prime piece of treasure, I hear you ask? Well then I'd answer that you win them by participating in the Yeti and Me art contest. To enter, all you have to do is create a self-portrait of yourself with a Yeti, doesn't matter what you're doing, just you and a Yeti, then post that picture to Instagram with the hashtag YetiandMe and tag @LeastHaunted. Also send your entry to leasthauntedpodcast@gmail.com with the subject Yeti and Me. We will share the winners on our Instagram as well as in an upcoming episode of this podcast. So once again, Yeti and Me art contest. Win yourself an awesome limited edition Yeti patch. And now we'll get back to the rest of the show.
Hey everybody, this is Garth. Least Haunted will be collaborating with another podcast called Hacked History a couple of episodes from now, and I would introduce them, but I think I'll let them introduce themselves.
I'm going to start you off with a question.
Sure.
You got ghosts in your blood?
I think I know you're gonna tell me how to cure the ghost.
It's not cocaine. It ain't bad. But you want to get the ghosts out of your blood? Do you want to get the ghosts out of your blood?
Yes. I don't know why you changed that accent, but totally.
What's up, everybody? This is Lucas here with my friend Jake for a little podcast we like to call Hacked History. Jake, have you ever wondered why Columbus sailed the ocean blue?
Because he couldn't read a map.
Nope, but it was without a clue, and the fact that he couldn't read a map. And if you like that, and you want to hear about some other horrible figures from history and some other questionable characters, Jake, you can tune into our podcast. What do we discuss, Jake?
We basically talk about historical figures. We like to talk about historical events. We like to make a few quips along the way.
That's right. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, go ahead and take a look. You can search on any major podcast directory. Go search Hacked History, and we will be there. And maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, but please check us out, and we would love to hear from you in the future.
For conquest in European... yeah, thank you, Disney over there.
We're gonna get sued.
No, we're not. No, we're not sponsored by Disney. We're sponsored. Just start throwing the red flag immediately. No. Disney, literally, there's a SWAT team dressed in Mickey Mouse attire just kicks your door in and goes, "We're gonna hand you a cease and desist letter."
Yeah, these are some very witty guys. We met them recently and had a blast hanging out, and we are very much looking forward to this collaborative crossover episode that we'll be doing. So, check them out. Now, back to your regularly scheduled programming. Alright, we're back. Those were some money bones, weren't they? Let's continue.
After that, it seems like the parish had a bit of difficulty finding a replacement. However, they do find the perfect person to come in, which is Reverend Lionel Algernon Foister. Now, I had mentioned that one of the Bull family, Harry Bull, part of his name was Foister. It's because this new reverend is actually a cousin of the Bull, so he's related to the family.
Oh, okay.
That built the rectory. So it's kind of fitting that he would then be, It's like those old Gothic horror stories or H.P. Lovecraft stories where it's like, oh, your uncle passed away and you inherited his haunted rectory.
Perfect setup for a ghost story.
Yeah. Real quick before I forget, the previous tenants, the Smiths, Mrs. Smith, said that she believed she had seen a horse-drawn carriage pull into the driveway a couple of times at night. She did believe that Harry Price was faking a bunch of stuff that was happening, but she did maintain that she had seen actual stuff that convinced her that it was haunted. Yeah, I just wanted to footnote that real quick. So now we got the Reverend Lionel Algernon Foister, his wife Marianne, and their adopted daughter Adelaide, who is just a little one. I think she's like 7, little young child. So they move in to the rectory in 1930, and they start having all the same things that happened there before. They got bells ringing, windows shattering, stones being thrown, bottles being thrown and breaking. And then a terrifying event of wall writing, where letters actually appeared on the wall, like written on the plaster, that would then fade away. They couldn't decipher what they said, most of them, but they were able to figure out what two of them said. And I think one said, send prayers in salvation. And then another one addressed Marianne Foister by name and said, Marianne, please help.
Oh, you. Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's really scary.
At this point, they start getting even crazier poltergeist-type phenomena. Young Adelaide is locked into a room with no key, and so they have to break the door down to get her out. And then on another occasion, Adelaide is attacked by, quote, something horrible. They don't say what it was. I'm imagining, it's like in The Shining, Danny goes into the room, and then we just jump cut to somewhere else, and then he shows up all messed up.
Danny, what happened to your neck? Danny? What happened to your neck? Huh?
We never know exactly what happened to him in that room.
Yeah, that's right. It's funny you mentioned that. When you're talking about the writing on the walls, I was thinking of Red Rum, and that's probably why it was so scary to me. I was like, oh, The Shining's scary. Yeah, so we don't know what happened to her, but she's been shaken up.
Yes, yeah. The Reverend tries twice to conduct an exorcism, but it doesn't really work. He claims that during the first exorcism, he was struck by a thrown rock. But there's still publicity going out because they're not being secret about this. They're telling people that this is still happening to them. They're being very public about it. The Foisters are experiencing all these things that are happening in the rectory, and eventually they move out. But not after getting significant press and having people come to stay there and experience and see things for themselves. They said they had a hard time keeping servants. They had a girl come in from London, and she only stayed for 2 days before quitting because she said she just couldn't bear being in the house.
Oh, I'm just thinking it's going through a lot of families here. Jeez.
But it's going through a lot of families, but not really, because most of that time was the Bull family.
Oh, right, yeah.
Then you have that brief period with the Smiths, and then it goes to a cousin of the Bull family. So it's still...
Oh, okay. Same family then, but different people, yeah.
Yeah, different branches of the family tree. So they also had a guest house that was rented out to a man named Frank Peerless, although he often referred to himself as Francois d'Arles.
This is a Francois d'Arles, known as, what is it, Frank
Pearson?
I'm also Frank Pearson, but at night I am Francois d'Arles.
Oh, sorry, Frank Peerless.
He has no peers, which means he's either very good or very not good.
But Frank actually moved into the lodging after I mentioned that little Adelaide was adopted. And they realized that as a young child, she was becoming a bit odd, growing up in this haunted house and away from children. And so they wanted to find a playmate for her. So they put an ad in the paper or found an ad. One way or the other, they end up contacting Frank Peerless. And he has a young son who's just a few weeks younger than Adelaide. And so he rents out the cottage so that his son can be the playmate of their daughter.
People go to the papers for everything. Oh, I need to get a hold of the Psychic Society. Call up the paper. I need a friend for my kid. Call up the paper. Well, I guess leave a personal, but still, that's interesting.
Yeah, and then he does some odd jobs around the property. People can probably pick up my weird apprehension because I don't know how to approach the next part of this story, or if it should be saved to the end. I'll save it to the end, okay, because it does leave a really bad taste in your mouth.
Oh yeah, that's what you want to leave everybody on.
Yeah, bad aftertaste all around.
Let's end making everybody feel really uncomfortable.
So in 1936, after the rectory has sat empty for a while, Harry Price takes a trip to go talk to the person who's kind of in charge of allocating the living and finding people to stay in the rectory. apparently it's gotten so much notoriety at this point that nobody wants the job or nobody wants to stay in it. And so they're already talking about building a new rectory or finding other accommodations for the future rector for the parish.
I guess that was always an option. I never thought about that. Yeah, you have a haunted house, just build another house next to the haunted house and move out of the haunted house.
Yeah, so he actually contacts Ethel Bull, who is the daughter of Harry Bull, who was the second. So her grandfather's the one who built the place. Or he gets in contact with her and asks to be put in touch with the owners of the property. He does so. He then discusses with them the possibility of renting the rectory for the term of 1 year, which they agree to, and he rents it for 1 year for the sum of £30.
Was this the newspaper ad that led to this secondary layer of flashback that we're in at this very moment?
Yes, we're about to catch up.
Oh, okay. I can feel it. We're catching up to the future. All right. So this was that ad.
Yeah, so he negotiates the rental of the rectory, like I said, for 1 year for the sum of £30, which adjusted for inflation would be about £205 in 2019's money, so last year.
Wow.
Which still does not seem...
So 200 and something for a whole year?
For this giant 23-room mansion, basically.
So that's rent for an entire year
Yes.
for a mansion?
Yeah.
Wow.
Although it said adjusted for inflation, it was £203, but I still imagine that's have a lot more buying power.
That's true, yeah. Inflation doesn't take into account the wealth of a society or a community, so yeah, that's true.
So he secures the rent.
Where is the rent? I must have the rent. Dollars, dimes, and nickels, I need them all right now.
So I guess he's taking on the living, but he actually decides that he himself is not going to move in. Instead, he puts out that ad in the paper that I read at the top.
Aha.
And he does this because he feels that to be impartial, he needs to stock it with other researchers that he is not there for, and then get their experiences and filter it through.
Oh, that's very good science. I hope he doesn't tell them what the different things they can expect are to, see if they have the same phenomena happen to them.
Unfortunately, he does.
All right, he's not that good at science. Baby steps. I guess he's better.
So, he puts out the ad, and when people start replying, he gives them an 8-page pamphlet called The Alleged Haunting at B, and then he blocks it. It's redacted. B, redacted, Rectory, Instructions for Observers. And it's also known as the Little Blue Book because it's a little blue pamphlet. He finds 48 investigators, people that he sorts through after all these rounds of interviewing people who respond to the ad. He wants people from all different walks of life. So he wants engineers, he has former soldiers, he has school teachers, university students, just a whole plethora of different kinds of people because he wants to, get as much accurate data, I guess, as he can. So he figures you need all these different kinds of people to experience it.
What a fascinating approach that in order to get good data, it's the profession of the observer that is really important to get to have variety. It's an interesting way of looking at it.
For a second, I thought, it's kind of like randomized, but it's not because he handpicked every one of these people after rounds of interviewing, right? So it could be seen both ways. It could be seen as he's trying to get impartial stuff. The other one is no, he's stocking the pond, as it were.
Well, and trying to make it look impartial to somebody who then you give the results and say, all of these different kinds of people saw these same things. So
yeah,
maybe it's the air of impartiality. Yeah.
So when he gives them the blue book, it describes the protocols required when they visit the rectory as an official observer. And then he also outlines some of the things they're going to be doing, like different vigils, the different experiments, requirements for writing reports of their phenomena. So it lays everything out. But it also has a resume of all the paranormal events that have happened there already. And so there goes your impartiality right there. You've just told them.
Yeah.
You just told them what to expect in the things that are happening there. You have it's not a control group anymore.
That's too bad. He had it. He was close. He was so close.
Also makes them all sign what we would now call a an NDA,
Oh.
a non-disclosure agreement. We'll put it on the Instagram so people can see the different, the 11 different rules of Ghost Club.
So all these people are gonna live there for a year. This sounds like a reality show. We've got plumbers, we've got firemen, and they're all under one roof.
Yeah, why didn't they do a real-world haunted house? I've actually wanted to see this for a long time. I thought it'd be great to do like a Big Brother type thing.
Have they never done a reality show haunted house? That seems like such an obvious premise.
I don't know. I know they've had like reality shows where they send people into haunted houses to do investigations, but it's like a one and done. Never to actually have people in the house where people either get voted off or maybe killed off or ghosted.
We don't know what happened to them, but there's suddenly fewer people in the morning. That would be a good gimmick. Oh yeah, I can see that now. Yeah, haunted house reality show. Stay in this house for an entire year.
No, I don't think they actually stayed there the whole time. I think it was like shifts.
Oh, okay.
You know, people would do their time there, probably around different schedules. Because also, you can't fit 48 people in this house all the time.
Yeah, there's a lot of rooms, but it's also a bit remote, so they all have jobs.
Yeah, they say there are periods of duty, so each observer is given time they spend there. And most of that time is, the duties included taking regular tours around the building, looking for things, I guess, that are out of place, watching and listening for any unusual activity.
You could bet after, like, day 52, they're phoning that in.
Right. I mean, most people probably saw it as like, hey, I'm getting paid to go vacation in this rural.
Oh, no doubt that's the way it was sold and, like, what people are thinking, yeah. I have a hard time imagining they'd be very diligent after a while.
So, one thing he required was he wanted an observer to hang out in the, they call it the summer house. It's like a guest cottage. That's next to the lawn where the nuns' walk was supposed to be. And the requirement was that they had to be there specifically for a full half hour before and a half hour after dusk, because that's the time that people had seen the nuns. So he's like, no, you're going to sit there every day at this time until you see it. I'd imagine it'd be kind of like when they made that Planet Earth documentary and you see the behind the scenes and the guy's like, yeah, we got this amazing footage of, you know, the hummingbird, but it took me like 6 months to get that 10 seconds.
To get this rare footage of the nun walk, we had our producer wait in this little box for several months. With no certainty he would ever see the nun. Then one day, miraculously... Well, okay, so that would be the next question. Did the nun ever appear to these people?
Not that I saw. After each one of these experiments or these sessions that were prescribed, so they included seances, and they said, like, waiting for the nun to show up, they were then required to write a very detailed report and give it to Price, who then kept it in a Borley dossier, which also was known as the locked book. He called it the locked book because I guess it was locked up or whatever. I don't know.
It's probably like a diary with a little lock in it.
Yeah. Dear diary, today I didn't see a ghost.
Really hoping for one tomorrow. Day 57.
I hope Harry thinks I'm cute.
Stick figures of me and Harry.
So he had official people who were there to oversee these experiments as well, and they took their jobs very seriously. They were trying to, again, do some kind of strict scientific guidelines, although looking back on it, we can see a lot of flaws in hindsight. In fact, members of the SPR and other detractors questioned why he bothered to rent it and not just buy it.
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that.
And they pointed this out as like a criticism because like he obviously had money and means. Remember, his wife Constance had a lot of money.
Oh, right.
And he was also had a lot of notoriety. And if you could rent it for a year for £205 or £30 at the time, imagine what it would cost to buy it. And especially since they weren't going to use it as a rectory anymore, he could have bought it and been free to do any investigation. If he wanted to knock down walls to find the walled up nun, he could have done that.
Oh, okay, so I guess they're saying that if he'd really meant it, he would have been a bit, he had the facilities to do a more thorough investigation than he did. That's the complaint. Okay. Well, that's fair. Yeah.
But then you could also argue that it was a way of not sinking a bunch of money into an empty, it would be a bad investment. It's like, okay, when he's done with his investigation, what's he going to do with it?
Well, and how much is he going to be able to sell it for?
Right.
Yeah.
These days, people would actually be more inclined to buy a haunted house, I think.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I think people are less superstitious, and well, I don't know. It depends on where you are. Like here in the Bay Area, you can bet that the most haunted house in the world would still sell for a lot of money because everybody wants a house here.
I just saw more info on that locked book.
Oh.
Yeah, it was outfitted with a Brahma lock, which I guess is a heavy-duty lock.
It must be because a Brahma bull is a heavy-duty bull.
Yeah, and it was kept in possession of one of the official observers, Sidney Glanville. They were the keeper of the locked book, so they were kind of going through this information before it got to Price. So they would take the information, they'd put it in the book, and then I guess the book would be handed off to Price. The current whereabouts of the original book, it's somewhere in America. Seeing the country, discovering itself.
On a long, long road trip.
It's got a lot of reflecting to do.
Somewhere in America.
So during the time of this tenancy of Price at the rectory, they gathered a lot of evidence confirming a lot of things they've already been seeing. And they had different seances. One of the seances, they somehow contacted the spirit of a French nun who said that she had come there from France to marry a member of the family that used to be like the nobility family that was in charge of Borley, the town of Borley. And that they were buried somewhere on the property because they had been murdered by another member of the family or a jealous lover or some such, and then buried in a building that used to stand on the site of the property. So that might be an explanation for the nun. Although, remember, the original legend was that this nun and this monk had at the monastery had fallen in love, right? The star-crossed lovers.
Yeah, this was a French maid who was going to marry someone, so...
But she had left the convent to do this marriage. Now, here's where this story all falls apart. It turns out... actually, investigators of the SPR at this time are trying to get their hands on the Borley Rectory as well. In fact, they had approached the owners during Harry Price's time there and tried to convince them to revoke his tenancy there and then allow the SPR to go there and do their own investigation. They had also approached the Smith family back earlier and had tried to convince them to not deal with Price as well. So they were trying to undercut and steal his evidence. But at this time, they did their own reporting and contacted the local archaeological society and checked historical records. And it turns out there never was a monastery in that location.
Oh.
And it does seem that the story of the star-crossed lovers and the walled-up nun was a complete fabrication of Henry Bull's children when they moved into the rectory.
Oh, man. Oh, I like that story.
They wanted a story to make their home seem more gothic or romantic and exciting. Because remember, it was a brand new house they just moved into. And so they came up with a story, most likely lifted directly from a novel called Montezuma's Daughter, published in 1893.
Oh. I was just thinking, that's a pretty good story for some kids to come up with, but they totally plagiarized it. Okay.
Or it might have been inspired by a poem by Walter Scott called Marmion, which was published in 1808, which is like an epic story that involves a nun that gets walled up alive. So it seems like it was an invention of the children. And once Harry Price found out that there had never been a monastery in the location, that's when this seance occurs in which the ghost says, "Oh no, I am a nun, but I came from France to marry into the family."
Got it. Yeah, it's a way of saving the story so people stay interested when it was okay. Oh, man.
this run of the comic book has different writers, so they're gonna retcon the origin story.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, Harry Price, definitely ingenuitive. Oh man, all right.
Yeah. So yeah, his tenancy ends with finding a bunch of evidence, and he writes a book about it that would come out in 1940, in which he says the title of the book is "The Most Haunted Home in Britain." And so he is making the declaration that Borley Rectory is the most haunted building and most haunted home in all of Britain, and here's all my evidence of such. And so, but in one of those seances, another spirit was contacted, and this one claimed to be the man who had killed the nun.
Oh, that's convenient. Okay, so this is the jealous lover ghost.
Yes, and this entity, claimed that it was going to burn down Borley Rectory. It was going to set it on fire and burn it all down.
Okay, but I could set the building on fire.
And it says that after the rectory has been burnt, they will find the bones of a murdered person in the burnt out wreckage.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's making it's set this prophecy up. Shortly after Price's tenancy ends, an individual then buys the property. His name was... Yeah, so the property is purchased in 1939 by a Captain W.H. Gregson. His goal is to basically make it into a tourist attraction. He's like, no, I'm going to do guided tours.
Cash in entirely. We're going to have rides. We're going to have cotton candy. We're going to have souvenirs.
Well, it's occurring to me right now that Borley Rectory has the potential to be England's Winchester Mystery House.
Yes. I can see that.
If you look at pictures of it, it's this big, imposing 2-story brick facade, and it is large. It has a weird corridor in there. It has secret passages to allow for the servants to move around in. These wooden walls and stone floors. It's begging to be a haunted house. From the moment they built it, it was begging.
Yeah, really.
And so Captain Gregson, he buys it, and he has this grand plan. But before he can carry it all out, a fire breaks out.
And he's already bought it, so it's not like...
He's bought it. One claim is that he was unpacking boxes and he accidentally knocked over an oil lamp. Because remember, there's no electricity in this house. All lighting is candles and oil lamps.
Oh, right. It's been a while. What year is this? It was 1929 when something happened a while ago.
Harry Price was doing his investigation through the year of 1936 and 37.
Okay.
This is 1939 when the fire breaks out.
Okay.
The rectory burns.
Did they find bones?
Well, there's an investigation into the cause of the fire. They conclude that it was started deliberately. Although, again, Gregson claimed he didn't because he had plans for the place. Why would he burn out his whole plan, right?
Yeah, he just bought it, so that doesn't seem...
Yeah. So then it seems like they're trying to save face a little and say, well, maybe he accidentally knocked over this oil lamp. Or is it possible that a vengeful spirit set fire to fulfill a prophecy? After it burns, Harry Price returns to do a brief dig in the cellars of the burnt-out house, where he discovers 2 bones he thought belonged to a young woman.
Oh, we're finding more and more of her body. We got part of a skull at one point, and now we have 2 bones.
He decides that these bones need to be given a Christian burial to end the hauntings. Again, just like Smith wanted to do.
I hope they buried it in the same place as the skull piece.
The parish would not allow him to bury the bones in...
Really?
Yeah, they wouldn't let him bury it in the official graveyard. It's buried in a different churchyard. And the reason why is because they said those aren't human bones. Those are pig bones.
You can't give them a Christian burial. Some pig is going to wind up in heaven. Everyone's going to be so upset in heaven.
Jesus is Jewish, and he is not down with the pigs, okay?
Jesus is going to be flipped out, and we're going to be cursed.
But he goes ahead and buries them all the same, but just not where he wanted to. So, thus ends the rectory itself.
That's a hell of a That's a hell of a story. Wow.
Well, I said that the battle goes on. So Harry Price, he dies in 1948.
Oh.
He actually ended up publishing 2 books on the Borley Rectory. He had The Most Haunted House in Britain, and then he had a second book that I think was called...
Was it called The Least Haunted House in Britain? No.
No. So the first book was The Most Haunted House in England, and it was subtitled 10 Years Investigation of Borley Rectory, because he had first visited in 1929, and then he rented it for the year in 37, and then he wrote this book in 1939 and then published it in 40. So he'd been on the case for 10 years. Then he writes a second book called The End of Borley Rectory, which talks about the fire and then details him finding the bones in the cellar and that whole incident.
I mean, kind of 10 years. More like 2 instances. It's like saying, wow, spanning 2 decades, when it's really like 1999 to like 2001.
Yeah.
Wow, spanning 2 decades.
10 years of research.
But after he dies, now the SPR, they decide, well, now we can do our investigation because he's out of the picture completely, right?
Oh, so they've been waiting for Harry Price to finish up, and now they're going to move in?
Yeah, in 1948, so the year that he dies, his good old friend Eric Dingwall, good old Ding.
Old Dingy.
Who he'd had the falling out with, and 2 other members of the SPR, they decide to now go into their investigation of Borley. The other 2 members were K.M. Goldney and Trevor Hall, who had been 2 of Price's most loyal associates early on, but had defected. They ended up writing a book in 1956 that contained the outcome of their investigation, called The Haunting of Borley Rectory, although it's mostly known by the name The Borley Report. And you can find it online. I was reading through it. It's a lot to parse through. But their ultimate conclusion was that almost all the phenomena that happened at Borley could either be faked or were due to natural causes such as rats and strange acoustics. You know, the old Jeff situation.
The old Jeff the Mongoose, yeah.
But when analyzed, the evidence for haunting and poltergeist activity for each and every period appears to diminish in force and finally vanish away. So it seems like every time there's a research, it just falls apart. It's And then they claimed that Price himself had, quote, salted the mine and had faked several phenomena to bolster credibility, and that had, because he'd done those few cases of faking it, everything needs to be thrown out. It's sullied.
Yeah, that's a thing in science. Once somebody's done a little bit of fudging of their data, you basically can't trust it.
Yeah.
I've never heard of salting the mine, though. That's an interesting expression.
Right? I had never seen that either.
You can salt the earth and then it won't grow anything, but salting a mine. Huh.
Let's see. Oh, okay. Yeah. So salting the mine is an old process of adding gold or silver to an ore sample to change the value of the ore with the intent to deceive a potential buyer of the mine.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So you have like a gold mine that's not yielding. You go place gold in there, so when you show it to a prospective buyer, they think it's more lucrative and they buy it.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's a scam.
It's a scam.
Interesting.
And a very apt analogy for if he was doing that, that's fits. He was salting the mine.
Yeah, exactly. Huh.
So again, this happens after he's dead, so he can't really defend himself anymore, but there are still people who are his defenders who, you know, come forward and try to still say, no, I saw it, or I was there and witnessed things. However, one of these detractors, one piece of evidence against Harry is pretty damning, and that is that back in 1929, when Price showed up to meet with the Smiths, the first time he went to the rectory, the newspaper guy who had tipped him off was also there, and he was a reporter named Sutton. And Sutton claimed that while they were walking around the premises, he was hit in the head by a particularly large pebble, which hurt.
Oh.
He turned around and noticed that Harry was acting funny, and so he seized him and turned out Harry's pockets and found that they were full of pebbles and bits of brick.
So he gets hit by a pebble, turns around, and there's Harry acting all funny. I'm imagining him trying to act casual and being like kind of awkward and like that really
whistling and looking around.
Yeah. The very obvious way. Turn out your pockets, Harry Price. What did I do? And he like makes him. So he's like forcing these two grown men, and he's forcing this guy to, and it's full of pebbles.
Turn out your pockets.
How did he explain himself?
He didn't really. In fact, well, actually, so here's the thing: is that after this happens, Harry had a heart attack. And so somebody went to go talk to Harry Price and wasn't able to, and his like secretary said, "Oh, he's unavailable right now. He's recovering from a heart attack because somebody attacked his credibility, and it gave him a heart attack." When this event actually happened, Sutton immediately decided he was going to tell the press, but then he said that he was stopped by lawyers of Harry Price.
Whoa.
Who said that, look, there was another witness there at the time, and basically the attorney says, hey, it's 2 against 1. Their words against yours, and so you better drop it.
Wow.
But once Harry Price died, he felt free to like, nope, I'm going to expose this and say this is what happened, right? We have evidence that, yeah, Harry Price was salting the mine, so to speak. He handpicked his investigators, and designed the criteria by which everything would be evaluated.
And told them what to expect from the ghosts.
And told them what to expect. So, confirmation bias is now a big factor. But I do still believe that he believed it was haunted.
Do you think that even though he believed it was haunted, he would be able to justify to himself faking evidence?
Maybe, because I think at this point he was still trying to build the credibility of his new organization. He might have been just kind of whatever necessary to win.
Right.
Some of the accounts that in his book, he inflates details or adds key details. Like he claims that one of the girls who had seen the ghost nun, had described its face as being forlorn and melancholic, and it was very sad. But then later she said, no, I never even saw its face. She's like...
Okay, so that clearly he was editorializing or exaggerating or hyperbole or whatever.
She actually said, she's like, in fact, I can't even confirm or deny that it was a nun. I never saw any white or any rosary. It was just a figure in a black robe.
That's none enough for me. Oh, yeah, you saw a nun.
I remember he also said about Jeff the Mongoose. I didn't see him. I didn't hear him talk, but I believe it.
That's right. That's right.
But I do think that, like I said, he was sincere in his belief in the paranormal, and particularly of Borley, because he was in the process of writing a 3rd book on the subject when he died. It was like his crown jewel. But I think a lot of that came from the fact that he trusted other people who had given him information. He had also read all the accounts of the Foysters who had lived in it before he rented it. That was the family with their little daughter Adelaide and the wife Marianne.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And crazy Frank. I said that I was going to bring that back up, and it left a really bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, whatever happened to her?
Okay. New information has come to light, man.
What in God's holy name are you blathering about?
Well, I'll tell you what I'm blathering about. I've got information, man. New shit has come to light. And shit, man.
Is this new shit in your research? Like you just discovered? Oh no!
Yeah, I discovered this. I uncovered it right before we began the call to start this recording process. And goddamn, it's weird is that my heart is actually beating while I'm talking about this because it is.
Well, you're like a news anchor talking about this thing happening. Hold on. Hand from off screen hands you a new paper. I'm just getting this news. Something new.
Well, it's the nature of this information that is delicate.
Oh, okay.
So, we talked about how Marianne Foyster had put out an ad or found an ad for this figure, Frank Peerless, and his young son. Turns out, in 1958, Marianne Foyster would give an interview where she admitted that she had faked many, if not all, of the things happening at Borley Rectory during the time she lived there, specifically to cover up the affair that she was having with Frank Peerless.
Wait, so she's having an affair with who?
So you have the Reverend Foyster.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
His wife, Marianne.
Yeah.
And their daughter, Adelaide. Marianne, the wife, was having an affair with Frank Peerless, the man staying in the cottage whose child was the playmate of the kid.
Got it.
And it seems like...
Okay. Well, now with the timeline there, it sounds like they were having an affair before he moved in even.
She claims it started within 2 weeks of him moving in.
Okay, so he moved in, but then... Okay, I thought maybe she had seen the ghosts even before that, but... Okay.
There were some weird events happening. They already had this idea that the house was haunted because of the earlier accounts. So it had a reputation. In fact, during the time they were there, her husband got really excited and started writing an account of all the things happening called 15 Months in a Haunted House. So he was caught up with writing this book.
Oh, it's so sad, and really it's all lies to cover up the affair that his wife is having. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and Frank Peerless himself is also he's a bad man. He's a bad con man.
Oh.
He claimed to be a widower. Really, he was still married to 2 different women who he had skipped out on.
Oh, jeez. That poor guy, he's writing a book about all these ghost things, and really it's just, it's lies covering up his wife cheating on him. Go.
Yeah, so also, while she's having this affair with Frank, there's also a young teenaged boy who does jobs for the family as well, a man named Mayerling. Turns out that he is being secretly instructed by Marianne, and he claimed later also by the Reverend as well, to fake ghost phenomena as well.
Wow.
Including having him wear robes that would mimic a headless individual and walking around the property at night so that people would see it. He claims that they had him paint phosphorescent paint in certain parts of the house to give off glows.
Wow. So it was all a huge elaborate scam to get people off the trail of an affair. What's weird about this is, like, how does that all help the affair stay a secret? Or is it something else happening?
She claimed that the ghost or the poltergeist had started to physically harm her. It was knocking her out of bed. It was pushing her around. Later in the interview where she gives the account of the affair, she said that Frank was particularly cruel and might have been into some kind of hardcore S&M type activities.
Oh, some kinky, yeah, okay.
And so he would leave bruises on her and make it a game of either trying to hide them in places where her husband could not find them, or doing so in such a way that she would then have to find an excuse for why there was a bruise. So then she would say, the ghost.
Oh, man.
She also would claim that the haunting activity would get too much for her to take, and so she needed time away from the house, at which time she was traveling to London to carry on affairs with other men, not just Frank.
She kidnapped herself. Hasn't that ever occurred to you, man?
That had not occurred to us, dude.
Oh, wow. It's so elaborate. Okay.
At some point, her husband was made aware or became aware of the affair. She said that she told him, but she didn't end the affair. She just told him matter of fact that, you know, me and Frank are a thing. What are you going to do about it, basically? And so they reached an agreement where, because he didn't want to save face within the parish, it couldn't be known that she was having this affair. And so they made a deal where she was allowed to carry on her affair with Frank on the condition that she didn't break up the family. In fact, at one point, her and Frank even started wearing wedding bands with each other's names engraved on the inside. So everybody thought the ring was her marriage ring to the Reverend, but really it had another man's name inside. See why this was leaving a really bad taste in my mouth?
Yeah. Well, I wonder when they were found out and reached this arrangement if some of the spice went out of their S&M time. Because, it doesn't matter if he sees the bruises because he won't care if it's a ghost because he knows about it or something.
Yeah, in fact...
the thrill is gone.
He actually once caught them in bed or in a very compromising situation.
Did she say it was the ghost?
No, yeah, their excuse was that Frank had seen a shadowy figure on the outside of the house by her window, and so he went to alert her and make sure that she was safe, and I guess then fell into her. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that's usually the way that goes. Are you safe? And before I knew it, I fell right on top of her, and my clothes fell off. And
What if there's an explanation for this shit? What? She tripped, fell, landed on his dick?
Yeah, in fact, his account of this event was, quote, I was out of the house before breakfast, and when I returned, I found quite a commotion going on caused by some apparition.
Bang, bang, bang.
Mr. Peerless had once more been our guest for the night. What has happened, I asked. Tell me. And he says, I was out in the landing just outside the chapel door when I saw the shadow again, Peerless replied. It came along the bathroom passage, turned right at the corner, and then proceeded down the landing until it came opposite your bedroom door, where it turned in. The door was partly open. And then what happened, I asked. I was asleep, put in my wife, and so saw nothing. All I know is that I was woken up by a great commotion put up by Mr. Peerless out on the landing.
A great rhythmic commotion.
Well, the latter apologized. I am sorry, but I didn't know what the thing was going to do and thought it was best to acquaint you with the fact that it was there. By thing, he means his penis.
I'm just imagining them telling him this and they're like in bed together. What's all this then? Well, there was a ghost. Wow. And he bought that. Okay.
Yeah, and later she would account how, she would have her lover hide down in the basement and smash bottles and throw rocks and just do stuff to make it seem more haunted. So then, of course, the husband gets more involved in all these things and wants to document more of it and gets more caught up in writing his book. But after she informs him of the affair, at one point she just tells him matter-of-factly that she's moving out with Frank and they're starting a flower shop together because Frank has said that he's a master florist and they're going to have this floral shop, which they move in to do. And it turns out it was a lie. He didn't know shit one about flowers.
Surprise, surprise.
And then while they're living together, he runs off and marries another woman that he's been having a relationship with on the side as well. But that didn't stop him from accusing Marianne of being unfaithful to him. So now, keep in mind, he has taken her from her husband or seduced her away, although he also said that she seduced him. It could be mutual. Either way.
Sure, yeah.
This has happened. The whole time, he is secretly carrying on with somebody else and then accuses her of going around with somebody else.
I have to say, Cody, at the beginning of the story, I was not expecting it to turn into like a soap opera of complicated layers and...
Like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives.
Yeah, at some point, a young man, I think his name Whitehouse, comes to live with them. And is a young man who it turns out is Marianne's son from an earlier marriage that was kept secret.
Oh, okay.
So even her husband doesn't know this is her son, and he was raised by her parents as if it was her brother.
Wow.
A real Jack Nicholson Chinatown situation, you know?
Yeah, wow. No kidding.
But somehow this kid speaks French. Because he's well educated, and Frank speaks French, and so the two of them get on like a house on fire or a rectory on fire, and communicate in French. At which point, this kid reveals the secret that he is actually Marianne's secret illegitimate child. So then Frank uses this information to blackmail Marianne into carrying on the affair as well. So it becomes really murky.
Wow.
As at a certain point, did she want to break it off? It is now being blackmailed because if he tells her husband that she was married before. Although, at this point, he knows she's having an affair, so I don't know why that would matter. But he says that he will tell that information to the head of the church, and that would then nullify her marriage, and it would just make her husband look even worse. Although, again, I don't think she really cared that much.
Yeah, where are the incentives here? I'm honestly confused by this entire situation.
Right? And you can see why I'm just so flustered. It completely derailed everything I was reading, where it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, you came into this with the best of intentions to find out about ghost stories, and it turned into this incredibly sordid, complicated soap opera.
Luckily, Harry Price died before all this was known. It probably would have destroyed him.
I am so happy for him that he missed all that. That would just be I didn't sign up for this, man.
I also mentioned that they had that young man, Mayerling, who was running around taking part in the hoaxing. He actually had been around for a while, and he said that when he was 6, because he was a local, that he was actually helping the Bull family. He was like an inherited ghost hoaxer that came with the property.
Oh, he was doing it with the previous people too?
Yeah, he said that they claimed that they had a ghost piano, and he said, yeah, he was hiding in crawl spaces and plucking piano strings they'd strung up between like boards in the house.
Oh, that's great.
He also said that the ghost writing that appeared on the walls that like asked Marianne for help. He said that, yeah, he was writing it on the walls, and that I guess when they built the rectory, I could not find any more information on this. So if our listeners know anything about this, I'm really fascinated and would like them to reach out and let me know. They say that the walls were plastered using cheap building materials that included sea sand. I guess you can make plaster out of sand for building purposes.
Maybe it's a thickening thing if you just want more bulk.
Yeah, because at first I thought it would be the sand in the mortar.
Oh, sure, yeah, of course.
Because that's a thing. But the way these writings on the wall are described, it's not in the crack of the mortar. It's like actually the plaster on the wall. He said that they used sea sand, and because of that, somehow it absorbed the ink into the sand. So anything you wrote on the wall, he said, within hours would be absorbed into the wall and gone.
Yeah, I don't quite understand how that would work, but I guess, yeah.
Right?
I'd have to think about that.
Yeah, so now the whole thing is just so complicated. You've got a ghost, basically somebody Scooby-Dooing somebody else to cover up an affair, using the help of somebody who was helping to Scooby-Doo on behalf of the former owners. All of this then leads to a later investigation that lasts a year. A guy stakes his reputation on it, all based on nothing.
Wow.
It all just falls apart, you know?
It's kind of sad and kind of hilarious at the same time. I don't know exactly how to feel at the end of all of this.
Right? So you'd imagine that given all of this, what are we to take away from this?
What do we learn, Palmer?
I don't know, sir.
I don't fucking know either.
Well, let's see. Lessons.
I guess we learned not to do it again.
Yes, sir.
I'm fucked if I know what we did.
Don't have an affair and covered up with ghost stories, for a starter.
Yeah, I guess so. Be honest and, what is the old phrase? Oh, what a tangled web we weave when we practice to fake ghosts.
But see, here's the thing, is given all this evidence of fraud, it seems that this case is still not closed.
Really? What's left, Cody? What's left?
Because there are still people who claim, now that the rectory burnt, all the hauntings moved across the street into the church. And now, they still refer to it as the Borley Rectory, even though the rectory is gone. It's now the Borley Church. Is still held up by many people to be the most haunted location in England.
This sounds like momentum. This is just pure momentum of a idea.
It's almost like the ghost of the ghosts. Like the haunting was killed. They killed that haunting.
That's a really interesting. You know what it is? This is like a meme, right? Not in the sense of an internet meme, but like the idea of an idea.
Yeah.
And yeah, the idea was killed, but it has reemerged and taken on new life as a ghost of the idea, and now that's sticking around. It's like once removed from being the actual idea. Wow.
So you have these people who are still fighting this psychical war over whether or not Borley is truly haunted or not. You have people who are on both sides who are fighting, and it seems odd that actually the SPR, who was the other side in that war with Harry Price,
right?
They've come out on the conclusion that it's not haunted.
Well, wouldn't that follow though from their animosity towards Harry Price, who,
yeah,
I can see why their interests would lie in that, because they're discrediting Harry Price at the same time.
But like I said, you still have these people who are, even to this day, books and movies are written about Borley Rectory that tell this whole story. In fact, in 2018, there was a movie I mentioned in part 1 that was all about just Harry Price's investigation of the Borley Rectory.
I'd be interested to see that movie. Yeah, that's interesting.
You can find numerous YouTube documentaries on it. Also, the story, like we said, it was an idea of an idea. It inspired other people.
Oh, yeah, of course.
In fact, one of the most famous ghost movies or haunting movies is the so-called The Haunting, based on the book by Shirley Jackson. who wrote The Lottery? Remember that story you had to read in middle school?
I don't think I've read that one.
Then consider yourself lucky, because it sucks.
It stinks. It's just I guess I won't read that.
But she wrote this book called The Haunting, which is about a haunted mansion and an investigator who then brings in a group of clairvoyants and psychics and then sets out parameters to have them investigate the house, and then it kind of spirals out of control. And it's worth I mean, you can watch the movie they made in the 60s with Vincent Price.
That's the one I was thinking of when you said The Haunting.
And then they remade it in the 90s with Liam Neeson. But the weird thing is they couldn't get the rights to the movie to remake the movie. So it's not a remake of the movie. It's a remake of the book, like, as a movie. So it's a whole new adaptation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can do that. That makes, yeah, that's how that works, I think, with copyright and stuff. What was the name of the movie that came out in 2018 about Harry Price?
I think it's called The Haunting of Borley Rectory. Another couple of people who decide to get involved and carry on the war. And I swear I'm not going to set up a part 3 on this. I think these people are going on the back burner because they are a couple of paranormal investigators who have, for the latter part of the 20th century, they kind of took up the mantle of Harry Price's investigations. They are just as controversial, and in fact, their investigations have shaped modern horror.
Wow.
Right now, there is a huge film franchise called The Conjuring and Annabelle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've heard of all of those and not seen any of them.
And the Amityville Horror. These franchises are all based on the investigations of a husband and wife team known as the Warrens. The Warrens got involved, and now, they both have passed away, but they got involved with the haunting of the Borley Church, and would give talks and write books about how haunted the church was. If people can't gather from the tone of my voice, my complete disdain for the Warrens. Because they are two people who made tons of money off of fraudulent stories, and they created hauntings out of whole cloth and got away with it.
So total snake oil salesman who made a lot of money off of dupes.
Yes. In fact, they actually had to, there was see, I said I wasn't going to get into them, but I am.
He just can't help it.
They actually had a court case. They had to go to a court case where they had to, I believe, argue that ghosts weren't real because they were making a movie off of one of the things, and it got into a whole legal quagmire.
A legal quagmire about whether ghosts are real? That's actually kind of fun.
So they could profit from a movie based on one of their investigations. And so they claimed the movie's based on a true story, but they argued in court that there are no ghosts, so they could get around, I don't know, some financial thing.
Oh, okay. So they're not even being consistent with their own.
It's just like how Marvel, at one point, there was a tax on action figures of humans. Like, I know this is weird, right? But there were toy regulations, and so there was regulations on action figures, and you had to pay a tax. So Marvel went to court and argued in court that the X-Men, the mutants, were not human beings, and so therefore they don't have to pay taxes on these toys they're producing.
Oh, I love it because it completely subverts the idea of the X-Men, right? Which is, even though they're mutants, they're still like. That's amazing. I hadn't heard about that. That's really funny.
I think what I'm learning from all this, the Borley Rectory case and that little Marvel anecdote, is that people will just do anything for money, man.
Yeah. There go your principles.
Or to cover up an affair.
People are endlessly creative, and you can always change. What was that great Groucho Marx quote? Well, those are my principles. And if you don't like them, I have others.
I feel like this whole case, I'm surprised that there wasn't actually a murder after all. 'Cause it seemed like one step away from murder at one point.
Yeah, really.
It seemed like the logic. Once we entered into the whole affair story with Crazy Frank, it seemed like that was the next logical conclusion.
Well, that's where I thought it was going when you were telling me the story. It's like, oh, this is going to end in somebody killing somebody. But yeah, I guess it didn't happen.
No, it just ended in the murder of a reputation.
Maybe they were all actually aware of it, and it was like some kind of a...
Yeah.
Some kind of a weird weird thing between adults. I don't know. Yeah.
So I think that's where we are. I don't think it's as satisfying a conclusion, but then again, most
wars end in just sort of a. The only war that end with a bang is like World War II, but like most wars, it's after a while it's just kind of over.
Just ends with a whimper.
Ends with a whimper, yeah. So here we are.
It ends in fire and broken hearts and burnt up reputations, and misinformation. You know?
Yeah.
Like any war.
Yeah.
We started this on a metaphor of peas and pods, and now we're ending it on this metaphor of the horror. The horror. War is bad.
Horror.
Horror. Yes, this has been an apocalypse now. Sort of a run it's just like, yeah, I need to take a shower after all this. It's exhausting.
I think it's a good thing that, next week we have a campfire club it'll be a breather. And when we come back, I think that our next topic we're going to talk about, we'll shift gears and make it kind of happy. I think we're going to talk about cute animals.
Oh, really? Oh, cute animals. Like what kind of cute animals?
And the way you're going to die.
I'm just imagining like a little Furby saying like, "You have 5 years left." 8 months and 2 days.
That's really cute. How'd you get it to do that?
Do what? That Furby hasn't spoken in 15 years. It's just a decoration now.
There's no batteries in that Furby at all. Also, I am totally not having an affair.
All right, kid. Now, I know you're the pool boy, but I'm also going to pay you to dress up as a Furby ghost. Wow. Psychic Wars Part 2. Excellent. There it is, man.
There you go, everybody. The Psychic Wars. So yeah, thanks for joining. I know it was like a real slog these last 2 episodes. A lot of stuff to keep.
Oh, I don't think so. Because we've edited in so many colorful little bits of yeah. No, I had a good time.
So again, yeah, if you liked it, let us know. Tweet at us, give it a review on iTunes or wherever. Like and subscribe on YouTube, and tell a friend about it.
Oh yeah.
Get that word out, really help us grow.
Oh yeah. We're growing every time.
More people really need to know about the canned ghost more.
All right.
Yeah, so until next time.
Keep it the least haunted. No, wait, do we have a sign off yet? Until next time, everybody.
For a while it was the only thing that's haunted is you, or the only thing spooky is you, but that was our old theme song.
Well, I think we could keep that. I mean, we could also say, and in the meantime, keep digging for them bones and cutting off toes.
Your mind is like an open book to me. I can see you disagree fervently, but my psychic ability, about my psychic ability, I mind rewind, set up for my power test. Psychic mind trick better than we'd have expected. Forward, back, find your inner self at peace. Remote view you too, and find a mystery at least. Your mind is like an open book to me. I can see you disagree fervently, but about my psychic ability, I mind rewind, set up for my power test. Psychic mind trip better than we'd have expected. Forward, back, find your inner self at peace. Remote view you too, find a mystery at least. Your mind is like an open book to me. I can see you disagree fervently about my psychic ability. Your mind is like an open book to me. Your mind is is like an open book to me. Your mind is like an open book to me. Our mind is like an open book to me. Your mind is like an open